Voices Radio.
Wow, that was Darkness Dawns. Hello everybody, my name is Benedict Gibbon, this is Visionary Voices, and today my guest is Paul Smith. No, not that one, but the visionary voice behind the, in the words of my previous guest, Eric Whitacre, choral supergroup, Voces8. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for coming in. It's an absolute joy to have you.
And I'm sorry, I'm not the other Paul Smith. I get that quite a lot. You know, we do quite a lot of work in Japan, and they love
You're big
Paul
in
Smith.
Japan.
Yeah, huge, but not as big as the Paul Smith, who is massive over there. So anytime they see my name, they just basically laugh, and then they ask if I'm anything to do with clothes. But sadly, well, we know the designer a bit. We don't. We don't get to wear his clothes too often.
Right across the road.
He does just there. And actually, he did a book about a year and a half ago of Paul Smith. Dressing people called Paul Smith.
Really?
And I managed to get a spot in the book. So
really?
it was quite good fun.
You know, we're gonna have to send me a photograph of that, and that's gonna go.
It was great. Yeah,
love it. So that was Darkness Dawns from your most recent, I want to say solo LP.
Yeah, but I had a lot of help along the way. You know, I'm a bit of a collaborative artist. I'm a choir boy, so I like doing things with as many people as possible.
So for those of you who don't know, Voces8, as I said, mentioned before by my previous guest, Mr. Eric Whitacre, when he sang with you guys. Voces8 sang The Veil Opens, his newest piece, with him last year at King's Place, are an 8-piece choral supergroup who I've got a huge back catalogue of bangers, of
absolute choral bangers. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what it is. That's what we do.
I mean, when I was looking through the sort of discography to work out what to play today, I was.
Yeah, we've spent 17 years or something crafting a number of different albums, but working with Eric was an absolute treat. And I really think his piece, The Sacred Veil, is something of a masterpiece. I think it will endure, and it's one of the most powerful and moving experiences I think the group has had in many a year to work with him on that project.
I mean, I was at that. He came into an interview here I think just after we finished rehearsal with you, and then just before we went into the show. So I was at that performance.
But you're very well placed, aren't you? Just here around King. You're not far from King's Place.
Walking
it was perfect.
distance.
Yeah.
So I saw it, and I've got to say it was a transcendent experience. It really was.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
So a little bit. You founded Voces8 with your brother Barnaby.
That's right. Yeah, the two of us with a group of friends. That's really how it was born out of friendship, and it really was just a group of people who used to get together and sing because we liked it, and we'd grown up, all of us, singing in different choirs across the country, and as many of us as cathedral choristers and going through that kind of route. And yes, then Barney and I one day decided to do it for fun, and then that became something a bit more serious when we sort of accidentally entered a competition in 2005 in Italy, and we got there and realised that we had to do a category with just 8 singers doing some vocal jazz, and so we entered and happened to win it, and suddenly we started to think that maybe Voces8 could be something more than a hobby, and here we are, quite a few years later.
I've actually got my
look at that,
my program from your show last year, which I'm going to have to ask you to sign later. I forgot to ask Eric to do it last time.
Oh, you didn't get Eric?
But the next time I see him, next time he's in town, I'll get him to do it.
Okay, you need to. We'll get that signed later on as well, for sure.
So I think, you mentioned so the type of music that you've done has evolved over the years. Going back to your back catalogue, there's quite a lot of sort of more up-tempo fun, sort of barbershop-y stuff, and then there's a lot of very sort of serious choral stuff.
Yeah, and actually when we started the group, and even if you come to one of our, what you might call one of our normal concerts these days, we love to mix it up. And we've always loved to do that, this sense that actually classical and non-classical music can sit alongside itself in the concert in an interesting and challenging and fun and provocative way. It's something we've always tried to do. And actually it started when we released our first couple of albums, Aces High and the Bach Motets, about as far away from each other on the sort of vocal music spectrum as it's possible to get, but from then we've been doing that.
I'm going to play something from Aces High in a little bit, but I do just want to. I think it's crucial for us to play something from the Sacred Veil at this point, just because it's obviously Home, your most recent recording with Eric, is your most recent release. So I think we're going to play The Veil Opens.
Wonderful.
I previously played the original recording when Eric was on here, but I'd like to play your version now.
It's quite a different flavour, so I hope you enjoy it.
Give this a go. So that is an extract from the first movement of the Sacred Veil. The veil opens, and you were just saying something to me fascinating, which is why I always wish that I recorded.
We should be silent, shouldn't we, while we're listening?
Well, I wish we recorded the outtakes of things while we're playing. You were saying something about, because the original recording, there was an original recording before the Voces8 recording.
Absolutely, yeah. I think
with,
we're number
with like 10 times as many singers in it.
It's a lot of singers by comparison, for sure. And I think often in what we do with Voces8, we have to take a piece that maybe is actually written for more singers, and we have to make it work for 8 voices. But something about the way Eric writes and the way we sing just seems to marry. It's a beautiful sort of marriage in terms of the sound that we're trying to make and the way we go about it. And I think the intimacy that he finds in his writing, particularly with this piece, is so powerful when you hear it just with the 8 voices. It's really magical for us to be involved. I
mean, I obviously heard the original, and then I heard you live, and then I listened to the record, and it's a different experience each time, but it's a magical piece. It really is.
It's amazing.
I think you really struck up something quite spiritual, actually. Yeah. Which I think was the intention.
Yeah, and there's also that joy of being able to work with the composer in the room for such a length of time as well, to really dive deep into what he was feeling.
You literally just had the day, though, didn't you, to prepare?
For the concert, but it was a bigger project, so we really worked for a couple of weeks together to actually build the entire program, and it was just wonderful. We're also good friends with Tony Silvestri, of course, the stories
about his wife.
So to have time, we spent time with him in America before recording it as well, so we really managed to immerse ourselves in the project. And I think for all of the singers, it was challenging emotional journey in the way it should be to bring something as powerful as this to life.
Absolutely. So at this point, I'm actually rocking a jacket designed by my previous guest, Emmanuel Unagi. Apologies to Emmanuel, I was going to keep it on, but it's 30 degrees. And I'm
it's very hot.
Really sweating, so I'm afraid I'm going to take it off for now.
Does this mean I should have arrived with a Paul Smith item for you for next show?
Paul Smith?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll have to do something very special for you for the next one.
I mean, I don't want it all to be about Eric. I want to talk about you. I want to talk about Voces8, and I want to talk about the foundation. I think it's very crucial to separate those parts as well. But I think one last thing I would say is that so Eric's innovation with the virtual choir is similar to what you've done with your digital innovation.
Yeah, there's definitely links and parallels, and obviously what Eric has done was groundbreaking and extraordinary. And actually, I think while we've spent a lot of our time over the last few years, really probably since 2015, 2016, that was when we really started dedicating ourselves to the digital sphere a lot more deeply. Yeah. But obviously this thing, the pandemic, happened. And actually there was no escape from being forced into the digital world.
So it made people sort of retreat and do things, and also boosted sales of alcohol, which brings us to a nice segue.
Into, beautifully done.
Into our sponsors, Moth. These are canned mojitos, visionary drinks in a can. So we'll just say cheers.
Oh yes, please. Yeah, we know it's going to be a good night now. Cheers.
So please tell us more about the digital innovations that you sort of started at that point.
Oh, that's very nice. So we created an online festival during lockdown called Live from London. Yeah. Actually, when we went into lockdown, immediately the first thing we did was doing a broadcast thing called Live from Home, which was actually mostly designed, so we just put it out on Facebook and YouTube every day, so that someone from our singing team or from our wider foundation team could do something online that would engage people while they were at home, some singing a song, playing some games, whatever it might be. And over those first few months, where I think the whole world was really at a loss, we spent our time thinking about how we could use the space we have, the Voces8 Centre here in the heart of the City of London. And we thought, hey, let's make this a kind of sanctuary for choral music.
Tell us more about the Voces8 Centre.
Space. So it's actually a beautiful Wren church, that's St Anne and St Agnes. It's on Gresham Street, just next to St Paul's Cathedral.
How many did he design after the Great Fire? 70 odd churches in the space of like a square mile.
I know that there's 43 3 in the square mile. That's maybe, and I don't know if they're all rim, but I know there's that many churches.
Got Mary LeBeau on Bow Street, and you got sort of circular around it.
It's crazy, you know. There's so many churches, and obviously these days not many people who live in the city. So we took over the building almost to the day now, 10 years ago, and we've been.
It's for your exclusive use.
Yeah, so we basically rent it, and then we have helped renovate it, and the focus for us is to turn it into a space where, as a musician or as someone who wants to be immersed in creative arts, you can come, and it's a place to make music, a place for workshops, a place for recordings, and obviously during the pandemic it became a film studio.
Yeah.
And unbelievably, we sold, I think, close to 200,000 tickets to online festivals, which we, you know, if you think how many times that's selling out the Albert Hall, it's not something an a cappella group does normally.
Speaking of which, the Albert Hall, you're very close to selling out the Albert Hall for this year's proms, aren't you?
Oh, it's going well, actually, I think. Yeah, it's going to be...
I've got my tickets already.
You're there we go.
I've got my box seats, yeah.
Oh, well, I'll see you there. Looking forward to it.
No, I can't wait. It's what's the date of that?
I think it's the... you're putting me on the spot. I'm going to say the 10th of August.
10th of August,
yeah. I feel like it could be the 10th of August. It's a late night prom, actually.
We'll double check that and put it up. But if just in case there are any tickets left, which is questionable because last time I checked they were going quickly, definitely recommend checking those out. That's going to be a really cool prom. In fact, you're playing some really cool stuff. One of my favourite songs of all time.
Of all time. That's a big thing.
Well, you're doing Pyramid Song, aren't you? By Radiohead.
Yeah. And this is a song that there's actually a very cool video that we had done on the internet as well.
I'll link the YouTube.
Yeah, it'd be really, really great. But that was one of our early Decca collaborations, and I absolutely loved it.
Well, let's have a listen to the recording of that, yeah. Okay, so that was Voces8's version of Pyramid Song, originally recorded by Radiohead.
And one of your favourite songs of all time, right?
Absolutely one of my top songs of all time. I was saying it's a shame that you missed out the Ondes Martineau.
Well,
But
I think we could also do some quite good vocal versions. If you really set some of our singers to it, they would love to make all the weird sounds that you possibly can find in the world. They're a very weird bunch, but we love them.
it's beautiful. I mean, you already got the dynamics down and everything, and it's just, you know, for such a loose song, I think it lends itself quite nicely to choral arrangement.
Yeah, I think the arrangement that Jeff's done for us there, and the way the groups edited it together with the strings as well and the harp, actually, yes, it's lovely, and we love doing it.
I think I'd like to talk about your role specifically.
Uh-oh.
So you were a co-founder with Barney.
Yeah.
You don't often sing in the choir.
So I sang in Voces8 for about 11 years.
Yeah.
And then we kind of reached the point where everything we were doing was just getting kind of bigger than we ever thought it would.
Yeah.
And I think I made the choice that for me, my big passion is music education, music in the community, thinking about how we can use what we do for the biggest possible social impact. And so much as I loved singing in Voces8, the role I now play is the chief exec of our foundation.
That's right.
And I compose a lot, as you've heard a bit on this show already. But I think the thing that keeps me most busy is the project side of what we do. So I'm actually off to Calais tomorrow, and we have a project with Voces8 and 200 kids there that I've been working with throughout the year. Then we're off to Reims after that. We have a French foundation, you see, as well. So we're kind of doing our French performances at the moment with all of these thousands of kids that I've spent the year just preparing to experience what the cool music can be like when you put them alongside Voces8 or Apollo 5.
That's fantastic. And I think that's so closely aligned with what we're trying to do here as well, by getting people from the community involved and sort of, you know, teaching them or getting them to be producers or DJs or event managers. And I think it's a really shared ethos, and I think it's so important.
And I love that. I love what you're doing, and I think if organizations like ours aren't doing that, then we have to wonder who will. You know, we're each
Especially,
trying to,
you know, now with, you know, government cuts to sort of music education.
to most things, yes,
creative, yeah.
that we do.
Exactly.
So yeah, I sort of feel like we've come through. I think I was doing an article with Bloomberg recently where they described it as the perfect storm of, you know, we had pandemic, we've had Brexit, we've had arts cuts, we've had cuts to funding since then. We're having so many challenges to everything that we do in life. To actually be a musician, especially a touring musician, is harder than it's ever been. And so we have to work out, in spite of that, how to cherish what we love, and then work out how to share it with the next generation.
How to pass it on, exactly, because if we don't, I mean, I find it so ironic that we just had Eurovision recently, and this, in Liverpool, and this celebration of, you know, oh, this, you know, Britain's great musical history and culture. Well, you know, we're not going to have that for much longer if you continue to defund the arts, as it were.
And if you look at some of the recent reports that have come out, I think we're 31% down in terms of the income generation since pre-pandemic, and the tens of thousands of jobs that haven't returned yet. So there's so much work to do.
Absolutely.
And the foundation work that we do is, you know, obviously thinking about jobs for the future, but also just showing people how important it can be to sing in a choir, and how valuable for their mental well-being, physical health, academic capability, and social cohesion. You know, all these things tie into standing in a room and singing together.
Well,
it's an amazing thing.
Choral tradition.
Yeah.
You know, there is a reason for that, you know.
Yeah, and we're very lucky that we have this heritage that takes us back 1,000 years. You know, I think I mentioned to you as I was coming in, I've just spent the day singing Gregorian chant for a new course we're making with a group called Wishful Singing from Belgium. So it's really nice that we can dive back into music that was written in 950, and we're singing it today. And
that's amazing.
And we want it to be sung in the year 3000, not just the year 2000. You know.
Well, I mean, I fully believe it will be. I hope.
I hope so.
Fingers.
Yeah, we're doing our bit anyway.
So you're heavily involved in the foundation side, which I think is fantastic, and I'm a big fan of that. I'm going to put some links into the Voces8 Foundation on the video.
Thank you.
And please, guys, check that out. Support that. You also do play the piano, and you do some direction, and you've done, as I mentioned earlier, we played the first track off of your second solo EP, and I put that in.
Yeah,
in
thank you for
commas.
I hope they can hear that on the radio too. You know, the solo. I know we're up here. You see it right there, so we're good. Solo, absolutely.
Because you have it on LinkedIn on your description as your solo records, but I mean, you go through the artists and it's Voces8 and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I think we had about 20 different artists involved in the last album. And
although Darkness Dawns wasn't Voces8.
No, that was just me and Caroline Caroline Dale playing cello. And yeah, she's a beautiful player. We met during COVID. Actually, she was playing for the English Chamber Orchestra when we were working with them.
But this one is with Voces8.
Yeah, so we're going to do the Nunc Dimittis, I think, are we next? Is that right? Yeah, so this is with Voces8, and it's a piece very close to my heart. When I was a kid, when I was like 10 to 13 years old, I was a chorister at Westminster Abbey, and so every day for a few years, you spend 3 or 4 hours singing, and there's a service called Evensong, which happens, and as part of that, every day you sing a setting of the Nunc Dimittis.
The Magnificat, usually.
Exactly, yeah. So the canticles, as they were called, and you'd either do it in English or Latin. That's right. But I've chosen the Latin setting of the text.
And I was going to say that's unusual. I mean, I one of my favourite pieces that I sung as a chorister is the Stanford Nunc Dimittis with the baritone solo in it. And that's in English. It's because it lends itself quite well to sort of being funereal. I mean, the lyrics, for those who don't know, are, "Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace."
Exactly, according to thy word. And it's this moment that Simeon has held baby Jesus in his arms for the first time and said, "I have, this is what I need to do. It's now okay for me to pass into the next world." Yeah.
So your set is in Latin, but I just thought I'd make that you're aware of that, so when you listen to it, you can think about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's hear your Nunc Dimittis. So there we go. That was Paul Smith's setting of Nunc Dimittis, sung by Voces8. And were there other featured artists?
I think that one just Voces8. Yeah. Across the album as a whole, I think Apollo 5, our sister group to Voces8, is also singing on some of the tracks, but that one was just them.
That's magical, and that's on your first record.
Yeah, that's on Reflections.
Reflections, which was released in 2009.
Correct, and I think on that album in total, I saw that as an opportunity. It was just pre-COVID to. Everywhere I was going, I was recording different community projects I was involved in. So this one just features Voces8, but on other tracks you can hear up to 3,500 singers, which is kind of fun.
Wow! How did you do that?
I basically spent about 6 months doing little sound recordings and samples.
Overdubbing it.
Yeah, I went to work with a producer friend of ours called Bill Hare, who lives in California. He does all the pop a cappella stuff. He's an absolute genius. And I sat in a studio with him as he mixed up all of this stuff that I'd given him, and it's incredible. I think the last track on the album is called In Paradisum Io, and it combines the sort of the chant culture with an African song, and you hear waves of children's voices crashing into each other at the end, and it's I loved it. Very experimental.
Waves and children. Well, that brings us into
seamless.
The next track I was going to play was we're going to quickly segue into another of your tracks from that album, Waves and the Boy. But I'd like to just sort of touch on something you just said to me while we were listening to the track. It was about the present and the past. And you're saying...
Yeah, well, I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of months ago who's an orchestral player, and he was reflecting, and it's made me think a lot actually since, and I'd love your people enjoying this show to make their thoughts known as well, whether how choral music sits alongside orchestral music. Yeah. And actually the challenge that he suggested to me was that actually choral music is much better in the modern day at reflecting what happened in the past, and the lineage is much more obvious than it is in the orchestral world. And I found that fascinating, that we are, as we sing, we're very much present in the past and past in the present. Is
it more self-referential or just more self-aware?
I think there's that line that we feel we're connected with somehow, which maybe comes from the fact we're using the human voice, and that sense of community and sharing with song is something that's so inherent in all of us as human beings. Maybe that ties into how we write our music as well as how we sing it.
So we are going to go on to Waves and the Boy, but also I just wanted to mention, so was it on the first record or the second album, you had a cover of a certain Mr. John Cage's
I did, that's
4 minutes and 33 seconds.
So that's on the second album, on Renewal, and Renewal is with a question mark, and so I've caused all sorts of problems in all sorts of ways.
I bet Spotify absolutely love that. You just get people to put that on repeat. So for those who don't know, John Cage's work 4 minutes and 33 seconds is a movement in work in 3 movements, specifically written in 3 movements, each of which is total silence.
And that's because if you and part of it actually, if you add up 4 minutes and 33 together, that makes, let's work this out, 273, which I think is minus 273 is absolute zero. So there's some,
zero Kelvin.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some logic in there as well. But for me, actually, the reason I put it on the album, and I think it might be unique in that it was performed potentially for the first time with 13 voices and Tibetan bowls, as you'll obviously be able to tell from listening to the silence, was that actually part of the album is centered around the silence that was COVID. Yeah. And so this is a moment in the album where we just have a pause to reflect. And then out of it, actually, I've written another piece called Listen, which sets up those singers and the Tibetan bowls in a Fibonacci spiral. Oh my gosh. And they all start making noises based on the harmonics they can hear.
No, it's not the golden ratio. Is it the silver ratio or something like that?
It might be the golden ratio. Yeah. Anyway,
it's what Voyager had on it. Where it left the solar system. The dots.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But it's it's magical just listening to the frequencies that the Tibetan bowls can make, played by Tina Lyle, who's a beautiful musician in many ways. She plays percussion for Van Morrison as her kind of main day job, but she's also a real spiritual being, healer, and she does sound baths and all sorts of wonderful things. She's amazing.
Sound baths?
Yeah, so you just go and you experience with her. She plays the bowls and the vibrations actually go through you. It's the most incredible experience.
Actually, I do have some Tibetan singing bowls at home, and they're quite fun to play around with.
Yeah, they are. Well, she's an absolute master. And so this piece, Listen, is also 4 minutes and 33 seconds long in tension, and comes out of the silence. So it's a sort of meditative 10 minutes in the middle of the new album.
Well, let's. Well, I'm not going to play 4 minutes and 33 seconds, but you can check that out on Spotify, or you can even imagine it just by sitting by
just
yourself.
do it.
Putting your stopwatch on.
Absolutely, exactly.
But we are going to listen to Waves and the Boy.
Run away, my love, run away, they say, to the land you see far away. Run away, my love, run away, they said, to the land for the quick, not the dead. Run away, I said, run away, hold my hand, you won't leave here alone. Run away, I said, run away, hold my hand, you won't leave here alone. Run away, my love, run away, they say, to the land you see far away. Run away, my love, run away, they say, to the land for the quick, not the dead. Run away, my love, run away, they said, to the land for the quick, not the dead. Take me home now, coming home now. Take me home now, coming home now. Run away, I said, run away.
So that was the wonderful Waves and the Boy. from that was from your first album.
Yeah, that was from Reflections, with Neil Valentine playing the viola, and Claire Stewart, who created Apollo 5, is singing the vocal parts you can hear there as well. And actually, it's all just done with the three of us, and all the sound effects are created with the voice or with the strings, and we've used loop stations and lots of different electronic effects to create something a bit different.
I think the reason I wanted to bring that one in was because I wanted to show the diversity that can be achieved in choral music. You can go from, people think of choral music as being very serious, but you can also do sort of, very innovative things, especially with technology. I'm
a huge believer in experimentation within our art form, and I think the human voice is the most versatile instrument you could possibly think of. So, absolutely, if you're coming to what we do thinking it's a serious thing, really, it's so much more than just a space for contemplation. It's creativity, it's fun, it's playfulness, it's everything you could want. It is that other thing as well, of course, but as you say, that it's so much more than that. Now, I am aware that we are a bit pressed for time, so I think I'd just like to sort of sum up by saying thank you so much for coming on, Paul. Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Sort of seeing you and having you on and talking about these great things with you. Such an interesting conversation. I'd like to talk about just sort of a little bit about the future before we sort of come back into the past as we keep a running theme going. So your next project, your current project, the most recent thing you've had is Home.
Yep.
With Eric Whitacre, which
Correct.
was the recording of The Still Lullaby and A Go Lovely Rose, which was his first composition.
You had a good chat with him, man, so you know very well, absolutely, and
as well as the Sacred Veil.
The Sacred Veil, yeah.
But also, you've personally got another project coming up.
I do, yeah, and it's coming out I don't know exactly when this will air, but it's coming out on the 30th of June. I have a first track being released with Daniela Mars, who's a flutist, and she and I have collaborated on this piece with her playing the contrabass flute, and it's the most incredible instrument. Yeah. And so it's part improvisation on her part and part composition, and it's inspired by a trip we had to Joshua National Park in America and watching the sun rise over this
Joshua Tree.
That's right.
California, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Over near Palm Desert, it's just the most incredible place. It feels like an alien landscape, and we were over there watching the sunrise, and it inspired this piece that we're going to have released called Crepuscular.
I've seen this video, and I thought, wow, that is that. I guess is that contrabass flute. I've never seen one in my life. Yeah. But it's very, very cool. We don't have time to play it, unfortunately, and it's not out yet. I think this video will probably come out. This will probably air the week after it's released.
Perfect.
So we'll link to the relevant links.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
In the YouTube page. So I think that's, and also, sorry, one last thing, just to remind people that you are playing the Royal Albert Hall on the 10th of August.
That's right. It's a late night prom. So
late night prom. So thank you once again. Thank you so much for coming on. I must get you to sign this before I go. This is my Eric Whitacre and Voces8 program. If you could just put it in there,
I'll put it just in there for you.
And but while we do that, I think looking to the past and in the spirit of Nunc Dimittis and looking back, I'd like to play your version of Goldeneye in tribute to the late great Tina Turner. So again,
enjoy.
Paul, thank you so much for coming on. I know you've got to rush, but we're going to stick that on, and we'll see you again very shortly.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Dig it down, 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 down. Dig it down, 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 down. See reflections on the water, more than darkness, see in the depths. See him surface in every shadow. On the winds I feel his breath. Goldeneye, I found his weakness. Goldeneye, he'll do what I please. Goldeneye, no time for sweetness, but a bitter kiss will bring him to his knees. You'll never know how I watched you from the shadows as a left behind. You'll never know the days, the nights, the tears I cried. And now my time has come, and time is not on your side. See him move through smoke and mirrors, feel his presence in the crowd. Other girls, they gather around him. If I had him, I wouldn't let him out. Goldeneye, not lace or leather. Golden chains take him to the spot. Goldeneye, I will show him forever. It'll take forever to show him what I've done. You'll never know how I watched you from the shadows as a child. You'll never know how it feels to be so close and beating on. It's the gold.